for Black founders, and we know that things that we do will unfortunately or fortunately precede how people think of others that step into the same type of path.
It's like so many different things that you go through as an entrepreneur that people don't show.
My accountant is like, you don't know what's happening, you need to lay off at least like 40 people. Yeah, but I don't want to do that.
They removed me and then tried to kind of like lock me out of the company.
I sold my car. I sold everything in my apartment. So it was just a very humbling moment in my life.
Startup and venture capital has its own language. And if you don't know that language, people in our industry will dismiss you before you get even the foot in the door.
Do you feel, looking back, that it actually was failure, or it's just the ebb and flow of running a business?
Well, you know, a year later, the news came out that Will Packer had bought my website, you know, and I just feel like if they didn't see the low moment, then it would have looked like I'm always winning. Like, she goes straight from one thing, oh, now this Hollywood producer has come along and bought her site. Yeah. It's easy for her. So looking back, I felt it was necessary to show a moment of, yes, you go through transitions. No, it won't be easy. Yeah. Like, it's literally, I think I heard Lauryn Hill talk about how we always want to climb a mountain and stay at the top of the mountain. But like, you can't get to the top of the next mountain without coming down off of one. And so it's like valleys and peaks. And so now I look back and say, it was meant for me to do that publicly. And like I always say, you know, when you ask God to use you, you can't choose how he uses you. Right. He had to show that moment, which was a moment of humiliation for me. But he was like, I have a win coming the next year, but they need to see this first.
What is the thing that you said to yourself, or who did you surround yourself with to just kind of help you weather that storm, and kind of silence the criticism as much as you possibly could?
Not really, but I had moved to Arizona before to go through the transition, because I felt like living in LA or New York, I was going to be around people who had an idea of who they were going to hold me to, this idea they have of me. And I was changing. I was evolving. But no, I started writing intentions every day. Like, right now, what was going to happen to me. I swear, like, every day I would be like, the day that Will Packer called me, I actually wrote down, I will be presented with an amazing opportunity today. So it was almost like I felt like I had a little bit of control over my life, even though I didn't. But I just woke up every day like, let me write intentions and try to be positive through this process, because I didn't know how I was going to make my next check. You know, so I didn't know. And this is after having so much success. And during that time, I sold my car, you know, I sold everything in my apartment. I moved to New York with one suitcase of clothes, and I rented a $600 apartment. And this is after like the success of 7 years of, but I had poured so much of my own money into this new brand that wasn't making any money, paying all the writers out of pocket, that I just started running out of money and didn't know what to do. But I knew I wanted to save my brand, and I was willing to do whatever it took. I do know while I was in that $600 a month, like, you know, apartment, living with the rotating roommates, I was just like, please don't let nobody see me. Please don't let anyone see me coming out of this place. So it was just a very humbling moment in my life.
So multiple restaurants. What is it like managing and kind of scaling the company now?
So it's a lot. And it's, you know, pre-COVID, it was a lot easier. And just speaking on a pivot, it was like, since COVID's happened, it's been a pivot. It's been, you know, everything from, you know, actual pandemic and all the setbacks with that, then came out of pandemic, then you're dealing with inflation. I know y'all dealing with inflation personally. You know what you used to get for $100 in the supermarket versus what you get right now. Well, I'm selling the food, so it's you know what I mean. But the thing is, with me selling food, like I'm gonna give you an idea. A case of chicken wings right now averages about like $60, $65. During when inflation hit, chicken wings were like $210 a case, right? But like for me as a business owner, I can only go but so high before you're like, I'm not even buying no chicken wings in a store because it's too expensive. So then you either got to eat that cost and just kind of just get through it. So hopefully you're selling the wings and they'll come in and buy some mac or whatever. But you know, like and then you know that's why Wingstop went to Thigh Stop at one point. They started selling sandwiches. They like wings, you know what I mean?
And chicken thighs.
Yeah,
it's just like lemon pepper chicken. Okay.
Right, but that's the reason why they did that, right? But a lot of people on the, you know, like I'm a business owner, so I understand that, but a lot of consumers don't understand that. So it's like, you know, people, oh, you trying to rob us? Nah, bro, I'm trying to pay my bills. Like, you know, so it's been, and in the real estate crisis, because we stayed open and everybody else was closed. So everybody from New York and San Francisco, LA moved here. And then what that did for us is it made all the real estate prices go up. Right. So if you was renting something, you was paying $5,000. When your lease is up, now they going to market price. Now that $5,000 went to $15,000. So, you know, it's just been a lot of just pivoting and just trying to just get to the other side. And again, like I think the critical thinking in the music business is what helps me guide me through a lot of this more than just, you know, just being an operator of a restaurant. Yeah. It's just like you literally got to hustle and just try to find a way to get to the other side. And it's challenging because you got employees and you got, you know, people, and some people understand and some people don't understand. They just, I can't work to get my check and I just want whatever. But like it's things happening in real time and you got to adjust. And like, you know, you got to, like, you know, when COVID happened, it was like I was carrying a tribe on my back. I had over 75 employees, and I'm turning on CNN every day, and I'm seeing people get laid off, and I'm seeing them stand on the unemployment line. My accountant is like, listen, we don't know what's happening. You need to lay off at least like 40 people. And then it's like, yeah, but I don't want to do that. Like, you know what I mean? These people been rocking with me. So I'm like, I crack my safe, and I'm like, I'm going to carry it. But like, okay, cool. It's a year. All right, cool. This never happened before, by the way. Like, nobody knows how long this is happening. Nobody knows what's going on. A year passes by. Okay, cool. Hold my beer. Hold this next year. And then so it's like literally you feel like you like paddling in the middle of the ocean with no sharks circling around you. There's a hurricane coming, no buoys, no help, no nothing. And it's just like, you know, I could swim and I could paddle, but like how long am I supposed to do this for? And so, you know, that was the thought process of like the last few years, but we here.
My situation, unfortunately for Black founders, isn't unique. I was removed by my board in 2018, inappropriately. A little history there. I had raised the $13 million, got the company from a $0 valuation to a $120 million valuation. Yeah. And what happens is, we have a lot of the angel investors we talked about, is they're not participating as the company grows. They still own a very, very small amount of this very, very big thing. All CEOs report to boards and all boards report to shareholders. And so after asking me to let them buy more and get more ownership a number of times, and I didn't see why we would do that or what the value there was, they removed me and then tried to kind of like lock me out of the company. So I sued, won, took the money from that winnings and started a venture fund ultimately. But what's really most important is Black founders in particular, but all founders need to be thoughtful about their docs, how people are removed, their name being on their document. So like Brackeen has a board seat for his whole natural life. Like if you're starting something, you should be on that board as long as you want to be on that board. And now as an investor, when I see organizational documents for like white male founders, they always have all the protections. And when I see women and minority founders, they're always trying to meet the investors halfway. Right? And that's really, really, really difficult place to start because in the end, they're just extracting from you. Unfortunately, one of the worst parts of my job is I probably take between 8 and 12 calls a year, every year, from a founder who has been inappropriately removed, asking me for my help because of what happened to me. And I always take the call. I wish it was 1 a year. I wish it was 0 a year. But it still happens.
I heard Kevin Hart, who has like Hart Ventures now. I heard him on an interview maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago at the A16Z event. And he talked about when the baton is passed to you, it's passed to you silently. And I was like, dang, I never thought about that before.
That's fire.
And to what you said, right? He's just like, people are looking at you without you even knowing it. There's not like a formal process to it, right? They sometimes are evaluating you, de-risking their potential investment, and you don't even know it. Nothing has been formalized. And so when you said people are looking at you without even looking at you, like, one, that's really cool. But then two, that's also kind of, I think Sherelle said something about that earlier, of just like, there's a weight and responsibility that feels like you always got to be on. So as an entrepreneur and a founder, do you feel like you always have to be on? Do you feel like you have like a not Sasha Fierce version of you, right? Where like, this is the Evan that is representing the company or raising money, and like, this is Evan, right? Like, talk to me a little bit about that.
No, that's like forever a challenge, right? It's this frenetic pace, right? So like, trying to make sure that you stay at that pace, but like stay yourself, right? Because if you don't want to be running in two different directions, like you're on in one direction. I always look at it like music artists, right? It's like if a music artist like went out of character to make a hit, and then they made a hit, it'd be very hard for them to like now come back and be like this type of artist, right? Because that's what worked for them. So I think it's important when you start out on the journey, like you just kind of stay who you are. So there's definitely an elevated on version of me, but then the relaxed version of me is just kind of like a person who was speaking before me is, curse words fly a little more, right? Like you have a little more fun, make a little more jokes. But yeah, no, it's a constant thing. And especially when you're early stage and you are kind of still being evaluated, right? It's like you don't want to make this slip up, especially when you're trying to do things of greater magnitude. Like our mission is large, but also too, like we're Black founders, right? And we know that the things that we do will unfortunately or fortunately, like precede how people think of others that step into the same type of path.
Do you feel like we'll have, how do I say this, right? And so Chris Rock has this saying of just like, true equality in like Hollywood is when like Black actors are allowed to suck, right? And still make movies and still be funded. Do you feel like it's the same way in the venture space? Like we'll have some level of true equality when Black founders especially can raise capital, the company fails, and they can raise more capital. Like in the same vein of like the Chris Rock quote, or no?
So as it stands today, I'll say no. And the only reason I say it is because if we're just talking about the founders. But if we start to see VCs, not just the VC, not the face of the VC, but like the LPs of the VCs start to look like us, right? To where they're not held to like, certain other opinions. When the first hires start to look like us, right? To where we're not anomalies, or the ones that have to always be like celebrated. It's just a normal thing. Then I think we could suck. But I think for right now, we do need to be exceptional. And I mean, that's a tough like thing to wear, because we're not great all the time. Sometimes I look back at those decisions like, man, that sucked, So yeah, but it unfortunate reality. But I think we're definitely moving the needle, especially in these past couple of years.
How did you reconcile that though, right? Because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of programs have been started, even in the last 2 to 3 years after the murder of George Floyd, and every corporation and their mother had a program, had a fund, had some sort of like massive D&I initiative, like all the things, right? And I think a lot of founders, while the faucet literally turned on in a number of ways, a lot of them also realized what was happening and kind of grappled with that, right? Like, do I realize the role that they need me to play in this moment, or do I just take the money so that like the ends meet the means, right? Like, how did you personally grapple with that? What were some of the conversations that you had with yourselves or others around that?
I mean, I really was unaware when it happened. So looking back, I would do things differently, but also I have compassion for myself. Like, I was brand new in this country. I barely spoke English. I did not understand a lot of the culture. The first time I realized it was when a group of students did a walkout. It was a talk I gave at Harvard, and it was for Latina students. And the first thing that I said is that I feel like it's extremely important that when someone like me takes up space and is on stage as a Latina representing Latinas right now, that it is my responsibility to acknowledge first that I have massive privilege in comparison to brown and Black Latinas. and that's something that we need to be aware of and we need to use to open doors for others and pass on the mic. As I was talking, I was just trying to explain to them intersectionality, basically. Everyone started whispering in the audience. And before I could finish my thoughts, they did a walkout. That's how offended they were. Why? Well, because a lot of the Latinas at Harvard, at least back then, were white Latinas that had the same privilege that I had, but that were completely offended by me calling it out. And that's when I kind of realized that's what I'm going to do in the future, so loud and from the rooftops until everyone realizes that. Because the thing that makes me the most ashamed of my culture is the colorism that we have. And if that's how my own community is going to respond to this, I'm just going to start talking about that every single day, and I'm not going to shut up anymore. And so that's actually a big part of how I started Founders Registry, is that all of my investors, everyone on my cap table was like, well, Anna, we would like to invest in more diverse founders. We just don't see them, you know. There is no founders. Like, we don't see them. The founders that apply to us, that walk in our office, they're all the same type of founders. We just don't see them. And I'm like, interesting. Because I live in LA and I see only those kind of founders. All of my friends are brown and black people. Yeah. How do you not see them? And soon enough, I realized it's not even that they don't see them. It's that startup and venture capital has its own language. And if you don't know that language, people in our industry will dismiss you before you get even the foot in the door, even if you're an incredible founder, even if you've built an incredible company, even if you have all the numbers that a white tech bro on a napkin idea does not have. They will not take you seriously if you don't know the language that we speak in our industry. And I think that one of my biggest benefits as someone who has, again, had the luxury of education, I learned a lot of languages, including English. So I learned startup at the same time as I learned English. Except English, there's a dictionary. There is no dictionary for startup. And so noticing that's the gap. That's one of the things that I'm going to really focus on and narrow down. And so the first people that I would mentor and just try to help and introduce to my investors, I would always look at who is the most marginalized person in the room. What are 5 doors I can open for them? And so that's first how I started the company before it was actually a company. And that's, I hope that's still what I do, is that my biggest, the biggest thing that I want to do as a person myself, but also I want founders and investors that work with me to take away is whatever privilege you have, whatever kind of privilege it is, right? Whether that's money, education, skin color, race, whatever it is, use that privilege to open doors. Too often I have seen white founders, especially all the white feminists, girl bosses that came about at the same time that I did. I would share the stage with them and they love to talk about their privileges and acknowledge it. And I kept sitting there thinking, you acknowledging your privilege doesn't do shit for anyone. Like, you are literally just sitting there saying, I'm gonna acknowledge my privilege. I'm like, what do I get from that? Like, you're sitting there acknowledging your privilege so that your person in the audience can take a video, post it on Instagram, and everyone's going to applaud you for acknowledging your privilege. Are you using it? And as someone who knew all of these girl bosses, I was like, no, you're not. You're not using it. And I know that. And I know that firsthand because I've asked you for introductions to your investors and you ghosted me and you ignored me. And I've watched you whenever a black female founder walks over and tries to talk to you to be like, honey, just give me a second. And you walk away and you never talk to them again. But here you are sitting on stage talking about, oh, my privilege. Use it.
You said something about like doing things that make you happy. 100%. And I think that gets thrown around a lot around entrepreneurship and passion. But running a business is not always happy times, right?
At all.
Can you talk just a little bit about like the juggle between the two and with some personal experience around that?
Yeah, I mean, I think people, and I always say this to people who are looking to become entrepreneurs from their job or just in general, I always say that I hate that a lot of current entrepreneurs on social media make it seem easy and fun 100% of the time. And I think it's honestly really unfair to those who are interested in going into entrepreneurship because they're going with the false preset. And so for me, on social, I try to be as transparent as possible. Like, yo, I'm struggling. Like, this is really actually tough. I'm in a down season. I always talk about those things because
I want somebody to say, okay, this is what it's like. And so, you know, for me personally, I mean, we had a time where right before Black Friday, we lost $40,000 in merchandise because our warehouse flooded. Or we had like 30 staff, but like 6 of them actually working. And it was hard to tell who was doing what. And so we were losing money. Or we had like chargebacks or this and this. It's like so many different things that you go through as an entrepreneur that people don't show. But then on the other side, it's like, well, we did NBA All-Star. I've always wanted to go to NBA All-Star. It was like on my vision board when I was younger. And now I'm like partnering with the NBA, or we're like in Urban Outfitters across the country. So there's like ebbs and flows of business, but I understand that, you know, whenever you're down, you have to go back up. Like I can't go down any further. And then even when I'm up, I'm like, all right, cool. Let me even keel, because you just never know what can happen. So, you know, for me, the times that are high make it the most worth it. And then the times are low, I want to get back to the high.